Good evening, everyone. As you can tell, I'm back from Africa. Had a great time over there. Me and the family was going to spend 2 weeks in Accra, Ghana, but after around the 6th day, we pretty much did all the activities. So we decided to save some money and come back a little bit earlier. We was going to go to Morocco. We was going to go to Casablanca, Morocco, and check that out. But, you know, the trip and the way we wanted to fly, this wasn't in the budget. It was going to cost us an extra $6,000, an extra $6,000 to go 4 hours north of Ghana. So, yeah, we had a really good time. We had a really, really good time. Spent a lot of money, of course, helping the economy there. But this evening, I want to talk about Cape Coast. Cape Coast is most known for the Cape Coast Castle, where people believe the transatlantic slave trade actually started to occur. And we're going to get into some of the factual information from the local tour guides on ground as he was explaining how things essentially, occur. Now, some of this will be chopped up because I couldn't give you all of it because I tape record the guy probably for like an hour or so. But nonetheless, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the real history. May mention some things about the people here and there, but I'm going to be breaking these videos up of me going to Ghana. That way, they're not too long-winded. So, without further ado, instead of me chatting, good evening, Jermaine Brown, good evening, Terrell, and as well, Sean. I see you guys. So, let's get into this because I believe it's important that we get into this. I learned a lot. I read a lot about the different African countries and how certain countries were colonized. Like if you notice, the north of Africa is still colonized today. But what they've done when the Arabs came over and they essentially took over North Africa, right? And that's why a lot of Egyptians today look between the shade of like a Mexican, so to speak, kind of that, like a real small brown hue. But most people see, Egyptians are white, but Egyptians used to be as dark as me back in the day. But again, that's because of that. The northern countries essentially lost the war. I don't know the exact war, but they've slowly taken over those parts of Africa because at one point Africa was all melanated. But we wanted to visit Morocco because what I read about Morocco is that the north of Morocco is white while the southern part of Morocco is black. And so that's kind of one of those things you can just notice with your 2-hour research, like why are the people northern of the country white? And then you see what part of Africa exit to northern countries where white people, came outside the Caucasus Mountains. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into this video. I'm going to show you guys a lot here today, so bear with me.
Oh, you can hear me fine. Okay. That's good. All right, so we're once again at Kava. My name Kojo.
Kojo? Okay.
That's a Monday bar. So I'll be your guide for the tour. We'll be starting by first seeing the male dungeon, but before we move in, let me give you a brief history about the castle and the transatlantic slave trade. Let me start with the Portuguese, because the Portuguese, they were the first. Let's take a step down because of the noise.
Noise, okay. No problem. I'm just going to play a little bit this and then we'll talk about it.
So the Portuguese, they were the first Europeans to have arrived on our shores. In the 1400s, the Portuguese started.
All right, I'm going to pause it here, family. I see that it's a little bit choppy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put it on another screen over here. That way it can play organically from its player versus, let's see here. All right. Give me a second, please. Bear with me. At this time, we're about to go. Here we go. You're probably getting a little bit of audio there. So we're going to see what that's. Give me 1 second, family. Just trying to make sure that you guys get the full effect as I got it. So I'm going to take this screen away very quickly. Let me get rid of these very quickly, family. Just bear with me here. And again, I just want essentially for you guys to get the full effect of what I essentially received. And I think it's important to get it organically because I don't want to do it justice, so to speak. Okay. All right, let's try this one more time. Okay. At this time, we're about to go to the male dungeon. So we're going to see what that's all about. I'm going to speed it up here, family.
So the Portuguese, they were the first Europeans to have arrived on our shores. In the 1400s, the Portuguese started exploring the coast of West Africa.
Let me know if there's an echo of any sort, please.
1471, the Portuguese arrived on the shore of Ghana. When they came, they found the gold. The natives or the Africans they met had been mining and trading in gold for centuries. So these Portuguese stayed so that they could get the gold to take up. And in the many years after the Portuguese arrived on our shores, around 1482, they applied a piece of land, a town not far from here known as Elmina. And Elmina, the Portuguese built a trading fort. They were using the fort initially as a transit point to take the gold away. But in the early 1500s, the Portuguese started taking Africans from Elmina to Brazil, enslaving these Africans on the sugarcane plantations there. And when the Portuguese started taking Africans from Elmina, they were basically kidnapping people randomly from their village, but they saw that it was a problem.
And this is how it started.
In these communities, were fighting back.
This is how it started, family. They started to kidnap people when they essentially came over for trade. Now, I want to say almost 100 years, Arabs and also northern whites was coming through the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, and as well as Egypt. And they were trading with Africans. And then they started to spread throughout different African kingdoms and what we know as different African countries. Because look at a place like Ghana, they didn't have a name for it, right? Ghana is as old as the late 1400s, right? Before then, in a particular region, there was different African, quote unquote, Ghanaian kingdoms, right? Without essentially borders, because you can be in another kingdom, whereas they spoke a different language, but you didn't look at it as in another country. You just looked at it as in another kingdom. So picture Africa as one huge landmass without borders. Okay. If you guys look up very quickly when you get a chance, very, very intelligent Julius Malema broke this down very quickly in a 7-minute speech. If you look up the United States of Africa, it'll pop right up. Off topic, the shirt that you see that I'm wearing is made out of authentic kente cloth because there are a lot of Chinese knockoffs even in Ghana. So this is a kente cloth from Ghanaians. My apologies. 100% kente cloth. I think the brand of it was Wooden. Very tough brand. It won't fade very easy. I thought it was a very beautiful shirt. My wife got some made as well as our son. But anyway, I think it's important to understand how these things essentially occurred. I'm going to let him carry on for a couple of more minutes. Then we're going to come back. We're going to really break down some different topics throughout this tour that I think is just very, enlightening for you guys to understand.
They started enticing some African kings with guns and gunpowder. Now, having arrived on our shores, the Portuguese had seen that there were different kingdoms.
Let me know, Jermaine, is there still a echo? I believe I tried to kill the echo.
When the wars happen, prisoners of wars are taken and used in societies as servants. So that is what the Portuguese took advantage of. In those days, as a king with the guns, your kingdom or your army becomes more powerful. You get to conquer your enemies, expand your kingdom. So the Portuguese started supplying some of these kings with the guns. But they were not giving the guns out for free. They wanted something in exchange. And what the Portuguese wanted,
they wanted
people. So that is how they got some of our kings involved. So many of the Africans taken away, like these Europeans.
Did the kings know that the people they were trading, that they were going to be enslaved?
In our society, we practice the indentured service. These prisoners of war were used in societies as servants, in the farms. But
what you guys need to understand right there, family, is I asked him about how did other African kingdoms treat their indentured service. Now, they essentially made them indentured service as prisoners of war. So they had some sort of servitude, I guess, to work off. They had indentured servants and prisoners of war who were indentured servants. But basically what the brother was saying is they didn't treat them as though there were slaves that we know of today. Like with it being the Caribbean, Brazil, and America, the large 3 colonies of where slaves was actually transported to. That's what he was saying. Like they didn't treat them like that. They never knew that the Europeans were going to hang and rape and burn and whip and torment and dismember our people. They didn't know that, right? It doesn't make it any better, but they didn't know that. Brother said it's echoing again. I'm trying to kill this echo. Let's see. I'm going to try to do a couple of things here, but bear with me. I'm going to show a little bit more of this. Maybe I'm speaking a little bit too loudly. Let me try this again. But anyway, I'm going to play this a little bit and we'll come back and then we're going to move on.
So the Africans treated the indentured service better than the Europeans?
Definitely. The conditions were better than what the Europeans
put them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the major difference. One thing though is, in those days, people owe their allegiance to their kingdoms or their ethnic group. So if I'm Ashanti, that's who I am.
Yes.
Yeah, you belong to this kingdom, so you're an enemy or rival. So for many of these kings, they were exchanging their enemies for the guns to make them or their kingdoms more powerful.
So this castle was built by the Portuguese?
This is British.
British?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the Portuguese were the first on our shores.
Okay.
This is British built.
Okay.
Built in 1665.
1665.
Yes. So currently 357 years old.
Wow.
All right. So we're going to stop it right there. I want to make sure I'm getting this echoing underhand. But nonetheless, so he was stating right there how the Portuguese was there first on the coast of Africa. Now, it was called at one point the Gold Coast, where a majority of the so-called UK, especially Great Britain, has tons of gold from Ghana, okay, as they map that out. What the brother was said, now he said that the British bought the fort, but the Swedish actually built the fort, according to Encyclopedia Britannica and other sources. And I think at this point, I don't think Europeans were like, well, it wasn't the British, it was the Swedish and not the Portuguese. But nonetheless, would it be Sweden Portugal and as well as Great Britain, they had a great hand in establishing the transatlantic slave trade according to the Ghanaian region, all the different borders that they have made with colonialism, right? To see who essentially owns part of them territories and the resources within. So now we're going to move over and I'm going to show you guys another video about the gold, okay? About the gold, which is very important. I'm gonna let this one play out for you guys. So bear with me here, okay?
Over and renamed it New York.
Right.
The British had a fort in Ghana known as Fort York. The Dutch retaliated and they fought the British here, took over that fort, and also renamed it Fort Amsterdam. So they were fighting all over our shores.
And they were fighting each other.
Each other, the Europeans.
All for greed.
For the money. All for the money. There is no written record of an attack on the British here. So we believe they did not even use them. They were here just in case. But no one came to fight.
Okay.
We are currently on.
So what's important about that one little short clip there is the brother said that it was the British, Portuguese, and there's some other countries that may have been a part of that, like the Germans, the Italians, the Spanish, that they were all fighting. I'm not saying those other countries were there, but there is some history that shows that some of them might have come. But when they built this fort, this castle essentially, and then kind of fortified it and made it a fort, was to war other European nations, right? Because at the time, Africans didn't have warships on the same magnitude that the Europeans did, right? There was no need for us to do that. They built those ships for storing cargo, for piracy of stolen cargo, etc. So I can understand why the British and European nations built their ships like that. So we didn't have ships of that magnitude. So they built them and they was warned against one another for the resources of Ghana, for the resources of Africa. So they bought their European chaotic, system simply for gold, simply for wealth, simply to be rich. They took their battles, their skirmishes to another entire continent. And this was all under the order and rule of the kings and queens, whether it be France, British, Sweden, the Netherlands, the Italians, you name it, the Germans, whoever was ruling those kingdoms, right? Because back in those days, they had kings and queens as well. This is all for greed. This is all for greed. So now I want to move over to the third point I want to make, because I don't want to stay here too long when it comes to this, as far as showing you guys videos. But this next one, I think we're going to harp on more so than the other clips, because this is what I've been trying to teach you guys little by little by little by little. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to play the video. We're going to come back, and I think we're going to have somewhat of a deep conversation, not too deep, because I don't want to lose people because they're going to believe I'm anti something. Okay. But I think with this information, let me tell you, when we were going through the slave dungeons, right? When people would explain there's some sort of energy, I didn't really feel that energy. I'll just be real with you. This was dark. Cooler, of course, because it was downstairs, but very humid. But I didn't feel the energy essentially from the ancestors. What I felt, I think the ancestors was working through the tour guide, because his words and how he was explaining it while we was in those spaces was, to me, the ancestral spirits, talking through him and kind of not make me focus on where I was located, because I've heard experiences, people felt, deep, dark fear, and I didn't feel none of that. But I did feel the power and energy that the brother was exuding and essentially give us the information. Because I can tell you, my wife definitely felt it. Okay. The reason why I say that is because if you didn't go down there with a tour guide and, you know, with your basic knowledge of it, it just would have looked like a cramped space, right? Or some, you know, tall enough for you to stand, but, you know, small rooms where they was, you know, putting us in 200 to 1,000 of our people inside of these places. So again, I think because they have done their due diligence and research, they're speaking from a place of understanding and then that ancestral spirit that they essentially absorb while researching this, so we know our history. Because as being a foundational Black American, you still have to know 500 years removed that our ancestors are originally from the continent of Africa. Okay. And then we are descended, once we laid place and began our own culture here in America. Right. And a lot of people, they get confused with this because they say, well, when we had this notion that there were no melanated people in America until 1619, or what, you know, a lot of us believe of 1526, how can we then say that Africa is the cradle of life and every human being, every Homo sapien actually came from Africa then? Because that's where the original people come from. So essentially, all of us came from Africa, right? So we can't argue that particular point. But anyway, back on point. The thing here, family, I've been trying to teach and preach to you guys about this next topic where we're going to go a little bit deeper in for a very, very long time. Not for you not to believe in a particular thing, but for you to have comprehension and understand and really put together the reason why you think what you think. Okay? Bear with me.
The missionaries, they had one major problem, the language barrier. The Africans had their own languages. So the British, what they did was that they took some African boys from the town to England to train them as missionaries so they could bring them back and use them to preach to the local people. One of these boys came back alive. The name Kweku. And Kweku, the name given to a Wednesday-born male among their country. Kweku was born in a town in 1741, and his father was a direct beneficiary of the transatlantic trade. The father was a middleman who used to bring African.
Did you hear that, family?
The British.
He said, and I want to break this down. He said that the British took two Ghanaians to Great Britain to teach them Christianity, right? And then when they came back, I believe his name was Philip. When he came back, he started to teach Christianity. Was, you know, that white was right and dark was wrong, essentially, right? Dark was evil. And this is, you know, some of the first stages of indoctrination. You know, they made some of the first missionaries in that region of Ghana, right? To look like you and I. What's the best way to fool somebody? For them to blend in. And then you're like, well, he like you. Why would he lie? Why would he confuse you? Why would he do such a thing? But this is the history, family. They've been doing it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So they get people to look like you, to undermine you, trick you, manipulate you. I've been telling you this for a very long time. And so happily, their brother's talking about Christianity.
The father was a very wealthy man in the community.
I bet.
At a very young age of just about 11 years old, the British convinced the father and they took Kweku to England. In England, he became an Anglican priest. He was the first non-European to be ordained a priest by the Anglican Church around 1765. And after becoming a priest, they brought him back. When he came back, he had a new name. So in England, he was baptized, given the name Philip. And over there, they were mispronouncing his original name. Kweku sounded as Papu. So the name changed from Philip to Philip. And the British used it during the slave trade. He stayed here preaching Christianity to his people in the town. So there is an Anglican church named after him, the Reverend Philip Anglican Church. He also was used to promote Western education. So there are some schools as well named after him. Now, he died in 1816 at the age of 75.
Hope you guys are listening.
So he is one African who was used by the British to promote Christianity and Western education among the Africans.
He was saying how they use one to teach European Christianity and two to teach Western education.
They were very selective with the scriptures. You know, they preached. They did focus on scriptures to justify, you know, in the Bible there are scriptures that talk about the slave, respect the master, and all that. The story of Noah and his sons, the three sons, the one who looked at his nakedness was cursed, but his descendants and his slaves to their descendants. So they used
to justify what they were doing.
Yeah. You know, and the Christianity the Europeans brought, it had nothing to do with salvation. It was for purpose.
It has nothing to do with salvation.
And even today, in some of our churches, you still find the pictures of white hair, blonde hair, white man, blue eyes, you know.
Yeah, in America too.
Oh, so they came with that. So and Satan and the demons always look just like you and I. We're black people. The angels were always white. Even at the very early stage of the
I'm gonna pause right here because I have a lot on my mind, and I just need to get this off my mind very quickly. What he said is that basically the Europeans came over through the way of Egypt and eventually, of course, got to Ghana and started to indoctrinate them with Christianity by using their own. Now, a part of this story that I did not add in is when we was in the main part of the slave dungeon, he told us right above the slaves in the dungeon, they was having church, right? So even then they were still practicing so-called Christian faith while still having our own people in bondage. Now, I want you to make the correlation there. The reason why I said European Christianity, because there is some history, there is some records that said there was a form of religion, not Christianity. Christianity actually gives it an improper name. It wasn't another form of Christianity. It was another religion. They essentially gathered books together to put in one book. And they said some of the stories inside of the Christian European version that they mixed and mastered some of the stories. Now, if you notice, no one has really put these together to show you the difference because they just know there was a difference and there's no hardcore records, right? Just other writings about those writings, other dockets about those documents. So those are the things that we have to think about. But what we know is that the form of Christianity that melanated people practice across the world, over 80%, is Christianity. And everywhere you go, remember when I took you guys to Brazil and I took a picture in front of the Christ Redeemer statue and he was like this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Portugal is the ones that colonized Brazil. Majority of the people are melanated. And I gave y'all my whole riff about when I went over there that the lighter skinned Brazilians and the whiter skinned Brazilians were doing 5 to 10 times better than anyone of a brown or darker complexion like myself. And then I talked to some ex-football player over there, and he told me it was classism, not racism. I said, so how can you explain? I won't get into that. That's just too much to unpack. And I've been teaching you guys about Christianity because I tell you, I'm not trying to move you from your faith, right? I'm not no anarchist, Satanist, or anyone of that matter. I believe that there's a higher God, but when you really do the research, and no one really does the research. I went to the source. I've been planning this trip for a very long time because when I was a minister and I renounced my ordination, people thought I was crazy. And I said, I believe there's a higher power. But who am I to say, and this is just one out of 1,000 reasons why, who am I to say that the millions of people that practice the Hindu faith, the millions of people that practice Islamic faith, been Muslims and such, or those of Jewish, or of Buddhist religion. Who am I to say that those millions and billions of people are going to go to hell simply because I believe in a different deity, a different religious document? Who am I to say that? Then what about the other lost books of the Bible? And people say they lost books because they will lead you astray, but that's what you would say as being a Christian, right? Because you don't want to, because anything add to or taken away from the Bible is considered heresy. It's considered evil. But this is from a historian who's a tour guide who is telling us how the European Christianity actually came onto the Ghana borders. And the majority of Ghanaian people are Christian. Still to this day, majority of them are Christians. And there's matter of fact, I know the numbers. 80% of Ghanaians are Christian, 15% of Ghanaians are Muslim, and 5% believe in the ancestral spirits of Africans before them. And believe in, I'm going to tell you the huge difference that I saw between the African ancestral spirits versus Islamic and Christianity is that those spirits were actually people who live. And those people who live were very good people, very humble people, and very meek. And so generations, people can actually let other descendants know about those people through stories, through acting out, because they were actually living beings, right? That's what that was essentially a lot of Africans' God was through living people, right? And of course, with the science and research of astrology, that took it to a higher plane of existence. I get it. But look how things come in. And now, majority of African people, whatever descent, whatever nationality, whatever tribal culture you're from, look at how we are now after colonization. See, have you noticed that even when I was in the Christian faith, no one really wanted to talk about how we receive Christianity. They just taught you how to pray. They just taught you how to serve. They just taught you how to be obedient to the word. Have you noticed that? Jermaine Anderson says Trojan horse syndrome, or shaking my head rather, Trojan horse, of course. And then he just said that some of the, Europeans took Africans to Europe to indoctrinate them with the Europeanized Christianity, brought it back over to the country of Ghana and started to indoctrinate the people. And out of the three things we kind of covered here tonight, this is by far the most important of them all. Because if someone can capture your spirit of where you believe your consciousness, right, your very energy to ascend to a heaven of being with a deity that's all powerful, all knowing, they have captured your mind and also your body. And I believe this is just what I believe, and I'm gonna scare a couple with you, but stay and understand what I'm saying. You're now trapped because your thinking is now limited by your faith. Because instead of you operating from an abstract view of Christianity, you operate from within Christianity. So it's hard for you to see out of Christianity. It's like a tinted window at 0%. You can't see nothing, like limo tint. But if you are looking at a Bible from a view and you understand the history and you understand the origin, then you will understand that you are trapped. When this brother was saying some of these very words, my wife was on my right hand shoulder. She was right behind me as I was video recording. I saw her tear up of how they essentially indoctrinated our people under hand and whip. Until this day, we are still trapped. When I was in Accra, Ghana, there were 3 types of rich people. 3 types. 1, non-Ghanaians, Lebanese, Chinese, Indian, Germans, Italians in Ghana. These are the 3 types of rich people. Number 2, anyone in the Ghanaian parliament, aka Ghanaian Senate, Congress, Ghanaian government, right? And then, oh man. Then number 3 was Ghanaians who had churches, whether it be Catholic, non-denominational, Baptist, or just, they have a lot of churches of Pentecost. Let's say Church of Pentecost. But this is how it was. Until this day, we are still trapped by colonization through the book of Christianity. And when you tell a Christian who's been on fire, who's tempted, tested, and tried by God, who has been ordained, who's a deacon, who has been leveled up in the church, who you can't talk them out of their faith. Very, very few people who's been in church that long walk away. Now, granted, Generation X, the millennials, Generation Y, a lot less of us are going to church, and we're starting to really branch out. And some of us, I guess, just did it as we are evolving with intelligence and with the age of information and technology. But see, I wasn't so easily to walk away from this. It was just signs and wonders that showed me out, especially going through my ordination and, just reading all these theological documents. And then it's like, well, how in the hell could you believe that? Because through your research, you will essentially find out that when the Moors were going up to Europe, they already had some sort of African religion. And when they started to go to the shores of Africa, they saw how a people was obedient because of their faith, because of their religion. They took whatever religion that was, and I don't want to label it Christianity because people say it was another form of Christianity. No, that's a European word. We don't actually know. Okay, maybe there's a lost document out there I didn't read, but we don't actually know. But they took it to Europe, whatever that was, mixed and mastered it, because this was during medieval times in Europe. They said we need something to essentially have our people operate in a very what's the word I'm looking for? Civilized manner. Okay, then we can use this. And then they realized how effective it was. Very effective. They realized how effective it was. And then they use it on their own people. See, what a lot of other people don't understand, before they did anything to us, they did it to themselves first. That's how they know it works. That's how they know it works, because they practice on themselves first. All the torture chambers, you've seen those medieval movies and shows. Those torture chambers, they practice all those heinous things on their own people and then brought it over through the transatlantic slave trade, right? This was going all over the Caribbean, Africa, Brazil, and America. So they have plenty of practice doing this. Until this day, think about how strong religion is because someone captured your spirit. Someone manipulated your spirit into believing. The first people, the people who develop a system to tell what time it was of the day, people who study the stars without modern day technology, will continue to believe this bull crap. This let me break it down for you, family. I love giving you this one example about Christianity, and I'm not beating Christianity because I don't want people to be butthurt because I really don't have any feelings towards it. If anything, I want people to be free in their own way, and I'm not saying Christianity is bad. It's kind of like a gun. A gun can be used for good and for bad. It's how you use it. Now, there's a lot of parables. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. Don't get me wrong. There is wisdom in the Bible. But this thing, the entire document, allegedly, was created for control. So even without wisdom, that would just show you the power of elevated minds. Now, some people say that that God bless ordained men to write the Bible, or was it this ordained men talking about a higher power? Think about that. Did God bless ordained men to, or God inspired men to write the Bible, or did inspired men or ordained men wrote the Bible about a God? See, there's a difference there. There's a sort of duality dynamic that you need to understand that twist, because if they were inspired by God, then those are God's words. But if they just wrote about if they were just inspired and they wrote about a God from what they thought it would be, then those words are tainted. Let me tell you why the words are tainted. And I love to give you this example. Right? So if you read the book of Genesis, right from the very beginning, and you kind of fast forward, because the Bible does that from time to time. When you fast forward to the part where, God essentially cast Lucifer down to the to earth, and he allowed Lucifer to operate. And here's the thing I tell people. We always talk about the devil and evil and Satan and this, that, and the other. Don't forget, every time they depict Lucifer, they depict him as some sort of dark creature, right? Whether it be a man or an animal with horns, red eyes, blue eyes, whatever, right? But they say Lucifer was beautiful. But why didn't you destroy Lucifer? Why did you allow the devil to exist? And people always, God don't destroy anything he has created. Yes, he did. Someone told me that God does not destroy anything he has created. Like, yes, he did. Nor in the ark, didn't he destroy the world by water? Or didn't he kill off everything? But Noah had to save things 2 by 2. And then he came back and say he would never destroy the earth by water again. Like, that's a direct confliction. But anyway, so he cast Lucifer down, and then he allows Lucifer to enter the serpent. Some people like to call it a snake, whatever, to convince Eve to eat of the tree of knowledge and good, right? So if God is omnipotent, all powerful, all knowing, then he already knew that was going to happen, right? And then the first thing, does that make sense? No. And then they will tell you, well, God's mind is not your mind. God's ways are not your ways. What? But he's not a God of confusion, but I'm confused. Well, you don't know the word. You got to enlighten yourself with the word. Okay, well, explain it to me. They never can. They say, hey, you need to pray and have faith. See, that's not further indoctrination. That's reinforcement of your brainwashing. So think about that. And as Steve Bryan said, the only people who were literate were the religious leaders.
They're the only ones who could essentially read, so they just believe whatever they was hearing. But till this day, and I'm gonna finish this video. Only got about 3 minutes left. But I get so fired up about this because people will beat me up because they feel as though I'm speaking against Christianity. No, I'm just telling you about it. Let me move on. I'm about to hurry up here. So Eve goes to Adam, tells Adam, eat of the tree, right? Hey, we heard some good fruit. You know, you put a little salt on it if you're from the hood, or you put some caramel on it in middle America. And then, you know, if you're white, you probably sprinkle a little sugar on it. I don't know. She said, go and eat of the tree with me, you know, the fruit or whatever. And some people like to say it's an apple. Let's just say that is a fruit because that's what the word says. And they go to eat this fruit and they realized, right, they became aware that they were naked. So they both hid behind a bush because now that means they were just walking around the Garden of Eden with no, with clothes on. And I have some stories about that, not to be funny. God, did he create flies? Because if your junk is hanging out and her junk is hanging, is it fly? Flies, mosquitoes. I'm like, hold on now. But anyway, I digress. Man. Anyway, it just was funny. I'm sorry, family. But then when you look at it, right? They realized that they were naked. God, his spirit came down on earth and he said, Adam, where are you? Read it for yourself, family, as I'm breaking it down. This is just Genesis. He said, Adam, where are you? Now, God is essentially toying with Adam. Why are you toying with him? You know where he is. You're God. Adam says, God, I'm behind this bush. Adam, why are you behind that bush? He knows why he's behind the bush, right? Okay. I'm gonna calm down. He knows why he's behind the bush. He said, because I am naked, God. He said, how do you know you're naked? Because this woman you gave me made me eat of the tree of knowledge and good. So the first sin on earth supposedly is disobedience. From a human being. I mean, one of the first sins recorded in the Bible is jealousy that Lucifer had for God. But again, I digress on that because if you all knowing, all powerful, omnipotent, first and the last, then when you created Lucifer, right? Because if you're God, angels and you didn't disappear because God was first. But if you're all knowing, all powerful, why did you create Lucifer knowing that he would be jealous of you? I'm just saying. Anytime I break things down like this, I have people to run from me because I'm starting to break down the very foundation that they built up. Because I'm talking with such a carnal mind, right? But I'm talking on a level that people can understand. And then I get, well, what do you believe in? What does Steve Bryan say here? The brother says, Talking Snakes and Donkeys, 500-year-old men, Fish Belly Survival, a book of fairy tales for the gullible. Wow. I told you I was going to take some time here, but let's finish this video. I want the brother to finish his point. Very, very intelligent brother who spoke very well. And I have a lot of stuff off camera, like that I could not record that he was telling me, okay? Because again, he does work for that particular area in the Cape Coast, Ghana. So he might be on a government level. He's getting paid. So I'm glad. I told him, make sure you wear your mask. Hopefully they probably can still figure out who it is if they see this video. But nonetheless, this is great information.
I grew up as a Catholic when I was a kid.
Catholic?
Yes.
Okay.
And in church, I was hearing more Latin than my own. Like I don't understand what they're saying. They say there's a response. So in the very beginning, they did not even allow African drums in the churches. The dressing, it had to be European. You know,
They changed their dress, he was
it's
saying.
only now that they are infusing, African culture and all that. But in the beginning, these things were banned because they were seen as inferior, they were seen as, evil and all that. So the Christianity that came, it was serve a purpose. And that was to brainwash people to elevate the white as superior to the black. That was the point.
Prior to the 1500s, was there any sort of like Christianity or the Bible in Africa, or they brought it with them?
Oh, there was. Ethiopia, Christianity had been there for.
So Ethiopia had the first part of Christianity.
Yes, in Africa it was Ethiopia.
Who brought it to Ethiopia?
Oh, in the Bible, Philip in the Bible, the Enoch he was from Ethiopia.
Okay.
So it had been to Ethiopia, Egypt. Christ was he smuggled to Egypt when the Pharaoh wanted to kill the kids or something like. So it had been to Ethiopia, Egypt, and all that. But in West Africa, the Europeans who came to build these castles, they brought Christians. West Africa, yeah. But Ethiopia, it had been there years, centuries, yeah, before these Europeans. But on our shores, it started.
So did it start in Ethiopia or did it start in Europe and they brought it to Ethiopia?
Christianity.
Yes.
Oh no, it was in. I think it was in what do you call it? Ethiopia long before the Romans kind of took up Christianity.
Okay.
Yeah. So
like you mentioned they had the Old Testament stuff, so Moses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Jesus, none of the New Testament.
Exactly.
Christ and all.
So they I think that Ethiopia you find what they call the Orthodox churches there. That's what they call
Okay.
it.
Orthodox.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it, like you said, it's a big difference from the Christianity
Of today.
of today. Yes.
So they mixed and mastered. That's
Oh
what-
yeah. Yeah. So we're very selective with the scriptures.
All right.
Yeah.
So-
We're very selective.
With that being said, family, like I was saying before, is that they took that religion and they mixed and mastered that religion for quite some time. And that's how religion essentially is today. So I know there's a lot of people, Moors, Hebrew Israelites, Muslims, Christians, all, Jewish, people who practice Hindu, Buddhism, etc. Everybody believes in some sort of higher power, right? Well, there's a few that don't believe in no higher power. It was all scientific, and somehow great cataclysm happened. Life started to be born and born out of something that everything is dead in, right? They're still trying to look for life in space. I can't really account for it, but I do believe there's a high power, right, family? I believe there's a high power, but putting a tag on it, we'll never understand that. And I just want people to be free. I mean, some people, very, very mean people, very bad people. Christianity and other religions have helped them to be better people for society. And that's why I said I don't essentially believe that all of one religion is bad. But I do ask myself the purpose, right? You never hear about Buddhism. You never hear about Hinduism. You never hear about the Islamic faith and how it was created. Right? You never hear people refer to the Holy Quran as a tool to control people. I'm not saying it isn't, but you never really hear of it. You never hear about the Buddha teachings. You never hear about Hinduism in those manners. Now, some people believe the whole entire construct of religion is built for some sort of control through the power of a single entity, a single deity, some sort of god. There's groups out there believe that they are gods, that human beings are gods because we have the power to create and destroy. Here's another train of thought. What if the world is God? No. The world. The animate objects that are not any sort of animal, reptile, or insect. Right? What if the world was God? Like it's always been. And somehow life spawned from that. Because again, I have a lot of questions for Christians. I do. Why did God make lions? Why did God make poisonous snakes? Why did God make ticks? Why did God make malaria, yellow fever carrying mosquitoes? Right? Or why did he allow it to happen? People can argue with this all day. I know. But please ask yourself these questions because in Ghana, where the people are beautiful people, very, very nice people, never had a bad encounter. I had some pushy salesmen, okay, because of the high poverty rate over there. I had some pushy salesmen, but fam, the people were some of the mild-tempered people that I've ever met in my life, even through their poverty. And we're talking about poverty. We're talking about on a high level, right? While we were traveling around the country of Ghana, me and my family and I, we saw people literally taking urination on the side of the road in broad daylight. We saw a lady, she was an older lady, maybe about 50, 60 years of age, in a nice Pentecost dress, and she literally spread her legs and peed through her dress. Like the first day we were driving, we saw this. It was a lot of like very unsanitary, nasty things with my American eyes. I saw someone take a dump right, people walking past. It was crazy. And in the city of Ghana, there was only really one good side of Accra. Literally, the entire country is almost like slums. But here's the thing: Ghana is built up, right? It has roads, it has lights, but you will have more shanty towns, right? You'll have more low impoverished areas than the parts that's built up. Because outside of Accra, in a certain area, I think it was the west side. If I can get my geographic direction correctly, that's how it was more built up. Because guess who was living in those areas? The Lebanese, the Chinese, the Indians, the white, the British, some Americans. That's what they were living in. And all the nice built up places and any other foreigners that came over. We saw Chinese girls walking down one of the streets as we were patronizing with some of the local salesmen. And then I said, hey, why don't you sell to them? I said, because they were being pushy, right? It was a couple of them around. Hey, you like this one? You like that one? You want this one? You want that one? You like this one? Like that one? I said, hey, man, why don't you go sell to them? Oh, they won't buy. Huh? They won't buy. Why not? Well, he said first, they probably live here, which is totally fine. Chinese live here as well. But he said, well, they're the ones who actually made some of the stuff. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, that's how we can get it for cheap to sell to tourists. So, ladies and gentlemen, some of the stuff that you believe you have from Ghana is actually made in China or made from Chinese men. See, I think on another broadcast, I'm going to show you this large mask that my wife bought for her office. Very, very beautiful mask that she bought for her office, right? And of course, this shirt I made sure was made by a Ghanaian, right? But we had to essentially go to where our driver, and shout out goes out to my driver, Eric, very honest, very protective guy of my family. We was with him damn near every day, drove us everywhere. Very protective, made sure people didn't cheat us. man, it just goes so much, right? Because I'm going off into another part of a video I didn't want to get into. But I'm going to go there for a minute. I'm going to come back. He made sure we was well taken care of because they inflate their prices because you're a tourist. Religion, Christianity, European colonizers. See, Ghana was essentially, I think, the first sign of Europeans was over there in the mid 1400s. Then Ghana gained their independence, 1957, and then in 1960 they got their first president, in Kwame Nkrumah. But even through those hundreds of years, or 100 years, roughly 100 years of colonization, they totally manipulated at least 2 generations of people. And to this day, that broken mindset and this belief that the richest people in Ghana are non-Ghanaian, part of the Ghanaian government, and 3, church. They own a church, they operate a church, they're ministers and reverends. They're the richest people in Ghana. And this is what I hate about Christianity. Some people actually know the truth. Some people actually know all the historical documents. I remember reading a deciphered, a translated part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I remember that. I'm just like, and when you put it all together, none of it works. None of it fits. None of it really makes sense. But because most people want to live for an eternity, we have to believe in a higher power to, of course, make sense of a lot of things. But 2, we believe that we're going to go to a better place. Wait a minute. And I want to bring something else to the forefront. What's a better place? Why are you trying to live a better life? Why are you trying to lose weight, gain weight, get in shape, eat better, fulfill some of your lifelong interests? Why are you trying to do that? So when we talk about this better place, nobody really knows what it is. But through years of torment, manipulation, this is what we have, family. The question for you is to be, why? But this is my tour of Cape Coast, and the most I got of it was a lot of the research that I've made, and then a lot of my, foundational Black American brothers out there that I've listened to a lot of their content. They were absolutely correct. It's a very impoverished country. A lot of it's built up, but Europeans control economics in that country. And family, if you control the economics of a country, you control the country. You can have a Ghanaian government, you can have people in power that look like you, but who is the puppet master? You're just holding a position. And do they have the power to change the dynamic of the country? Absolutely. But by taking dollars from the Chinese, taking dollars from the Lebanese, taking dollars from the Indians to manipulate their lands. And as I was driving through Ghana, I saw Chinese housing. I saw Chinese factories. Some of the malls are owned by the Lebanese. Some of the malls are owned by the Indians, and they're still building over there. And they saying that the dynamic of Ghana is changing because a lot of foreigners from these countries are coming over, paying the Ghanaian government in order to take the resources and build. And this is one of the most important things that I've learned. In Ghana, there is no organic construction company. Now, the Ghanaians work for the Lebanese, the Ghanaians work for the Chinese, but there is no organic Ghanaian construction company. A foreign group has their hands somewhere in it. A lot of the trucks, Chinese. Factories, Chinese. Even the birthplace, even where Kwame Nkrumah lays to rest, that whole that whole area, that whole museum, that whole shrine was made by the Chinese. Now, again, with that, I don't want to make that sound ill will, because when he essentially passed away, the Chinese did it as paying homage to Kwame Nkrumah, because he went over there and made some really good relations. But what we need to understand, family, the Chinese of then and the Chinese of now are two different. So the Chinese are now in Africa whooping Africans' asses. They're in. I don't want to get into that. I'm gonna leave it at the Cape Coast store. Like I said, I have so much material to cover. I think I'm gonna be doing a cigar talk here for the next 3 or 4, and I'm gonna break this up because I have so much to give you guys, and it's already been an hour. You guys have a great and wonderful evening. We'll talk about this so much. But beautiful people in Ghana, very humble, very meek people, have nothing ill will to say about them in those regards. I'll see you guys on the next one. You guys have a good night.